So, good afternoon, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the course. Last week we were learning about the 5 love languages, which is one of my favorite topics to learn, to teach, to talk about. And this time, however, we will be speaking about metonyms, metaphors, within the field of news creation. So it's going to be a lot of examples and visual examples as well, because in my opinion, metaphors and metonyms, as well as synecdoche and irony, they can all appear both verbally and visually too within the field of the media. And then we will be learning about news creation. And next week, as I'm expecting, depending on how much time this video will take, we will go into negative news and catastrophe news, because that's going to be one of the favorite kind of news creation types of the media. You might have noticed it, that 90-something% of the media, the news media, is going to be negative anyways. So I thought of focusing on that one, but also because this is my field of research as well. I wrote my dissertation about visual rhetoric within the field of catastrophe news, because this is one of the biggest kind of segments of the media. So I'm very much happy to next week to show you my research as well about the Bataclan shooting and the Katrina hurricane from 2005. So I'm just in the Bataclan 2015. So I'm very excited to show you that one. But in order to kind of put down the conceptualization first, we are kind of focusing on metaphors, metonymies, as well as news creation in general, and kind of learning the definitions and everything that was needed. So metonym and metaphor, let's get started. Now, linguistics has contributed quite a bit to the ways we analyze text, culture, media practices as well. And I'm not sure if you remember these, because I'm very sure you learned about metaphors and metonyms when you were in high school or in secondary grammar school. Now, a metonym is going to be a figure of speech in which the thing really meant is represented by something synonymous or closely associated with. And it can have a bunch of relational kind of contexts. It can also be a material one kind of thing. It can be a part and whole kind of a thing, which we will call a synecdoche type of a metonym. That's the most kind of spread type of a metonym. It can be a consequence relationship between the two signifier and signified kind of objects. So a metonym, and a very typical metonym, the synecdoche, would be the word press, for example, which is a metonym standing for all the newspapers, or the word stage, like you go and conquer the stage. Of course, you're not there conquering the stage with an X or something. You are conquering like the stage of art, or the theatre, or the stage of the media, for example, which is going to be quite an important metonym. Let's go. Metonyms and synecdoches, inherently these part and whole relationships, are very, very much liked in the media as well. And visually as well, they can be expressed. For example, the photograph of one single starving African child may be more kind of impactful if you look at this baby and you look at the face and you look at the eyes and everything. It can be standing for the whole general African situation, and trust me, this one photo of this one little baby is going to be more impactful than if I showed you statistics, let's say, that I'm showing you the whole African situation with numbers that like this and that many people don't have daily fresh water, or this and that many people are starving within this and that field. And so it's just like one single photo and one single kind of visual imagery of one child is going to stand for the whole situation, the whole society, and for that reason it's going to be more impactful and better. The news are also metonymic because it conveys smaller issues that are typical for the wider picture too. So if I show you that the pandemic, for example, is spreading like wildfire in this and that village or this and that city or capital or something, you will kind of take it as a complete mess, that like the whole world is upside down at the moment. Okay, so it's a very good means that you show a little segment of the world and then you kind of generalize it to the whole. That's what we do with the news as well. Propaganda is like that too, and stereotyping is like that too. So the media is very good of a means in order to create stereotypes in the head of the people, because we show just one single case and then we generalize it to a whole, let's say, social group, or the whole whole country or whole society or something. For example, protesting crowds are also the same. Protesting workers or street beggars or asylum seekers or refugees, they are always like the whole. It's going to be that all workers are on the streets, when it's not really the case, or all students went on to protesting against some measure. It's not the same. It's not true really, because it's not all the students. It's just a bunch of them, which the media will show as if it was the whole society not being happy with the situation. Okay, so like this Spartan whole metonymy, synecdoche kind of issue is there, and it can be both like conveyed verbally as well as visually. The visual synecdoche kind of thing is going to be, metonymy is going to be super, super strong. I'm going to show you a video in a second anyway. A metaphor. Metaphor is a word or a phrase for one thing that is used to refer to another thing in order to show or suggest that they are similar based on something. He was drowning in paperwork. Now, a paperwork can be like having a lot of work, of course. You cannot drown in a paperwork, literally, but there will be a metaphor in here. A metaphor is very, very similar to a simile. It's just that you can say that her hair is like gold. This is a simile. And you say that somebody has got golden hair. That's going to be a metaphor. Or you say that somebody's eyes are so pretty, they look like stars. They're so sparkly. Or you say starry-eyed. That's going to be like a difference between a simile and a metaphor. Margaret Thatcher, for example, she was called the Iron Lady because she was so tough. I read an article last time, it was in The Guardian. Orbán Viktor, our present Prime Minister, Europe's daredevil, that's also like a metaphor, if you accept that. And then the English Times during the 19th century, they called this whole newspaper the Thunderer, which is going to be like, because it was, bringing down all the latest news, and it's like really going in and showing what's going on in the world. So metaphors are very, very often used within the media. And these metaphors have got great resonance. Thunder, the thunderer, symbolizes outspokenness, power, and it commands attention as well. And they might distance us from reality, but they create pictures in the head. And for that reason, they will carry a lot of meaning behind it. And it's very, very important. Politicians are using metaphors all the time in order to make their speeches more lively and more memorable. It's very typical to use the traveling kind of a metaphor, that we need to get on this kind of bandwagon now and go ahead, and we need to be moving fast forward and stuff like that. The migrant crisis, we often mention that one, that they enjoy using the water metaphor. They're flooding into the country. They will be kind of I don't have the vocabulary in English very, very much, but it's like the flooding synonym and the water synonym, that they're coming in big waves as well. Oh, wave, that's right. And it's all about, the English language also has it, that like it's all about water, as if it was just like, making you drown. And that's very, very like a good way of painting a picture in the people's head and making them kind of understand it more, what you want, or remember it more. Or it's quite it can be a means of manipulation as well, of course, if you want to kind of put in the head of the people something that you want them to remember for a long time. Now, as for visual metonymy, I really wanted to show you a video from one of our ex-students. He was actually creating this video for Professor Kovács Lajos and for I think it was some sort of a visual communication course, but it went all over our department, and we really did like it. I would like you to watch it too with me now. It's called 1.5 square meters, and it's going to be, I'm hoping that it's going to be fine on my computer as well. Let's take a look. It's a very good visual example to the part and whole situation. Let's take a look. And I'm hoping it's going to be visible enough, loud enough, everything enough. Yeah. Okay, so this was, I think, one of the best student works I've ever seen in my life. Of course, it's rather, I'm not sure if we can go back and I can just, that's when my laptop normally freezes. Yes, I can just show it to you once again. Very, very sad one, of course. It shows, it's a metonymy for a life cycle, of course. Not many students tend to guess because it might be culturally different, but the first one is a little ribbon that we tend to put around the wrist of the baby, not to get mixed up and take home somebody else's child. And the rest of it was understandable, of course, and I do have some favorite parts, which is rather like, there is some joke behind it, a sense of humor as well, showing the development as well. Sometimes, putting there some alcohol, taking away the cigarette when, putting there the cigarette when you're a young adult, and then taking it back when you're bearing your own child as well. Taking away the condom, putting it back. It's all like a very beautiful life cycle as well, and it's like single little things will be kind of referring to the whole. For example, showing the candle, which shows the death of the partner, and then in the end the death of the person itself. Money, which can show that the person like retires and turns to be a pensioner and having less money as well. Beautiful, beautiful thing, and it stays with the person. I think it's really, really, really powerful. And these metonymies as well. Now it doesn't move anymore. Let's see. It froze down. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen, I will be back with you. Sorry, 1 second. So yes, once activated, these metaphors are very difficult to control because it gets stuck in your head and they're very much staying with you as well. And metaphors can be deeply enriching, allowing us to see things from new and unexpected ways as well. And without them, poetry wouldn't exist. And without them, actually, the newspaper and the headline kind of situation wouldn't be as creative or as easy. Let me show you a few examples. For example, black guy asks nation for change. This is very manipulative and very much of a metaphor. Black guy, instead of president, asks people for change or asks nation for change. That would be nothing special, but if a black guy asks it, that's like, it's a lot of like ad misericordiam, appealing to pity. We will learn about these as well. Shame on us, and in here it's like a US. It's both a visual and a verbal metaphor at the same time. Very smart way. Little wiener in the oven. Somebody's in the oven, which will be a metaphor that somebody's in trouble, which is going to be very, like quite a metaphor that you will remember, that somebody's in the oven, somebody's in a heated situation. However, sexual metaphors are going to be super big as well. Perhaps the most potent metaphorical signifier is going to be sexuality. You can find it, it's an absolute, a must in the media, that you can sell everything practically with a puppy, a beautiful woman, sexual woman, or what else can sell quite a bit. Puppies and good women. I think that's all really. That is like always. Puppies can be substituted by any kind of little animals, but they will sell. Oh, babies. Yeah, maybe babies. That's like something that the media tends to use quite often. So this is perhaps the most potent kind of metaphorical signifier, sexuality. And by imaginative association, we will kind of connect the beautiful bodies to these good connotations as well. And advertisers will locate sexual attraction and sexual potency in a limitless range of products. You can find it too that it's always going to be women, or majority of times, unless it's a male product. So if it's like a razor for the face, or if it's like a male perfume, then it's going to be a male kind of doing it or advertising it. But apart from that, if it's a yogurt or a car or whatever, it's definitely going to be a woman. So, or an ice cream or anything, it's going to be a woman eating it. Let's see this one, for example. It's Burger King. I didn't really know that Burger King did have quite a sexual campaign back in the days. And only those kind of ladies are shown in these pictures who seem to have never eaten a hamburger in their whole entire life, because they're so very, very slim and in a very fit shape as well. You can tell, like, she will tell you size doesn't matter, she's lying. So there is a lot of like sexuality in verbality as well, but also like, I'm not sure who eats a hamburger while licking their wrist, but that's what it means, or that's how it looks. In the left corner, I'm hoping it's left for you as well, there is like these two hands holding the buns, if you will. So it will blow your mind away. Yes, of course, it's like a very sexual connotation. In the right bottom corner, you can tell that there is a very sexual connotation, that like an open mouth and like a big like elongated hamburger going inside. That's what they do majority of times. This one, however, this is going to be a video game, Soul Calibur, and this one was a new release, US and EU release as well, and it says go big or go home. So you can tell that, and there is a visual metaphor behind it. As I've mentioned, unless it's really like a male kind of thing that they want to advertise, even in those ones you can find pretty women or sexual women, but whenever they need to sell something in general, they will kind of put it in your face, as in here. So not this sexual though, so it's not very typical, but a hint of beauty or a hint of femininity, a hint of sexuality is always there. Or if you think about the new video clips, Cardi B, that's soft-born. Shakira and Rihanna, soft-born, that video clip that they have as well. A lot of the times, Nicki Minaj dancing in Absolute Nothing. So you can tell that the visualization of video games as well is just like super, super sexual nowadays too. This is a Burberry perfume, and it must be advertised with someone who has got absolutely nothing underneath this coat. And I think this is one of the isn't she the very famous Victoria's Secret model? So it's like a celebrity also being used, but at the same time, a lady who has got absolutely nothing on apart from the coat really. So sexual imaging can be said to provide stimulus, excitement, surprise, or simply just some pleasure, and people are even if they don't remember it in the shop, that like, oh, there was this really like absolutely undressed woman on this photo, and that's why I'm buying this product. It's still like they have got a positive connotation towards that product, and for that reason, advertising is a really, really manipulative kind of a sector of the media, because sexual imagery need not be linked to the product or the service. You will just, remember that you were happy to kind of think about this product, and then you might have a better chance to buy it. So yes, the association need not be meaningful or relevant. For example, a naked woman and Burger King, or a naked woman and a perfume. It's not necessarily a very typical kind of an association, but still it works quite a bit. Okay, yes, sex seems to have an infinite capacity for innovation, we have mentioned, and they're also doing it, they're using celebrities as well, majority of times. For example, a Beyonce perfume or something, that it's like a reward, and it's like you can be like her if you use this perfume. You can be as talented, successful, beautiful, rich, healthy, wealthy, everything. Now, that's not the case, unfortunately. So it's going to be that they're trying to sell it to you. Metaphors are always there. Metonymies are always there. And a lot of the times it's going to be sex that will sell it to you. Now, I've mentioned that we will get down to the news. And I chose a Walter Lippmann kind of quote for you, as the beginning goes. All the reporters in the world, working all the hours of the day, could not witness all the happenings in the world. Which means to us that there is a huge wave of selecting, framing, agenda setting, and a bunch of things. And whenever we say that there is something objective going on, definitely not, because they don't even have the full-on palette of the news that are happening in the world. Not at all. They do have a slice of what they can have access to. And then, this is an accessibility error, if you remember that one from our questionnaire. And then, of course, they will kind of set the agenda for that as well, because maybe they don't care about it. And they will also frame that story too, so that it's just going to be according to their own taste. So saying that objective news, that's a paradox. It doesn't exist. Okay, so what are the news? Now, numerous diverse definitions exist, just like to communication itself and just like to the media itself, but especially to communication. I've been learning and teaching it for 10 years, and I cannot give you a full-on definition that I would be happy with. Now, according to Daniel Berkowitz, the news is like trying to interpret a hologram, because everyone sees a different size of it from a different angle. Therefore, people are unable to detect every single aspect of the hologram all at once. Now, the main issue, this is a hologram, sorry, yeah, so the main issue, ladies and gents, is that we don't even want to interpret the whole side of the hologram, but we need to understand it, that if we look at a hologram, I will see this side and you will see that side, and it might not coincide, it might not be the same, and we have to kind of respect that people will have a different side of the whole story, and it must be kind of taken in consideration that not everybody sees the world as you do or I do or we do in general. Now, Daniel Berkowitz, he's a big news researcher, and he put together a three-way approach. For example, the news is not a tangible material content that the good journalists will kind of find or stumble upon. It has no boundaries in time and space, and only man-made barriers can be observed. Man-made barriers as in some people choose to show it to you and some people choose not to show it to you. We do hear a lot about this and that war. War in Afghanistan, for example, war in here, war in there, which is going to be very, very important. Sometimes, however, we don't hear about other wars in general, or we hear a lot of things where America is involved or an elite nation is involved. Iraq, for example, when America conquered Iraq as well. We did hear a lot about it, but sometimes they try and keep things in a hush-hush in other countries where there is also war. Middle East or Congo or anywhere else where there is child abuse and child working and all the jazz. It's just going to be the same way. Or poverty, for example, is going to be kind of quite loud in certain places and not loud at all in other places. So where there is interest, there will be media coverage, and where there is no interest, there won't be any. The news does not inherently own values that make some events relevant to some redundant. Social terms is going to be that will kind of determine what is relevant and what is not. Each and every news is going to be just as important. So, yes, for example, I keep mentioning this example that when you could change your profile photo to a Paris flag, to a French flag, just a couple of weeks afterwards, a month after the Bataclan shooting, there was I think there were 3 attacks, 2 of them in Turkey, Istanbul and Ankara, and then one of them in Russia, which was an airplane attack. So you can and you couldn't change your Facebook profile photo to those colors. So you can tell that the media will tell you what is going to be a prominent action and what is not. And right now with the conflicts in the world, sometimes the media shows it, sometimes they don't. Whatever is going to be according to their interests, they will show it. Journalists are not able to remain objective about the world surrounding them, much as they try to eliminate the integration of personal opinions and beliefs in editing news. I fully agree with this one, that journalists are not able to remain objective about the world, but I don't agree with them much as they try to eliminate the integration of personal views. I think they don't even try to, because they are all hired by a news agency, they're all hired by a full-on ideology behind it, and they will be always responsible for these kind of issues, The definition to the news. The news is a human construction that gains its characteristic properties and meanings through the social practices that surround it. Practically, this is the best that I can serve you with. So it's just going to be a social construction, not something that we can tangibly kind of differentiate from other things. It's a social, humanly constructed thing that will be kind of created for an audience for kind of convincing and manipulative purposes, in my opinion, and informing, of course, but not necessarily. Okay. Television news suggests that what we see is what there is, and the press suggests that journalists do not write articles, they write stories. Now, that's very, very important, in my opinion, too, that we are like this. We're called homo narrans as well, because we are kind of living in stories, in narratives as well, both visually. For example, if you think about the stories on Snapchat or Instagram, they're very big, and we enjoy using those because we enjoy storytelling. Now, the media has got a lot of storytelling going on as well, and the people say that the news is also going to be a kind of a narrative style. It has got a narrative style to it. Yes, so we are homo narrans, we are the storytelling animal, and the more we examine the news production, the more it resembles the process of fiction production, like drama, fascinating characters, a piece of life, humor, pathos, revenge, madness, sacrifice, a lot of things, which is going to be on the box tonight. And it's just going to be very, very much full-on a dramatic involvement rather than just listening to it. It's not information gaining, it's like story gaining as well. It's like as if the news was spilling the tea as well. So it's definitely not objective. Yes, there is the information model, which I think is a useless one, and the story model, according to George Herbert Mead. And it's going to be really, really important that stories are built around protagonists who are archetypical, with a character that are very much recognizable, such as heroes, heroines, villains, victims. A lot of the times, it's just like a full-on crime story on the TV if we watch the news, or anywhere else where you read the news or watch the news. Okay, now how does the news how does it flow? What is the news flow kind of? Agenda setting is the first one. So first of all, what do we want to cover? We need something. We need a little bit of economy, we need a bit of politics, a bit of sports, a bit of weather, this and that and that. So first you set the agenda. Then you get the raw news. You get the information as a news editor. The news gatherers, writers, reporters, local editors will kind of process these news as well. They will frame it, of course, so they will get the news, they will kind of create the tone that they want you to have. Then adding an image as well, because nowadays we're communicating in pictures, that's really, really important. And then you've got the completed product. This is what literature says, that this is how news creation has got its wave. Agenda setting, getting the raw news, news gatherers, processors, framing, image adding, and then completed product. So practically, there is a full-on strategy behind what you want and how you want to write it. Now, according to Berger, in his work called Popular Culture Genres, he actually says that there are 4 types of 4 genres of the news itself. There is the quiz, the drama, the actuality, and the persuasion. And you can tell that based on objectivity, of course, and emotional saturation, you can tell that they are in a kind of in a matrix. And so if the emotional saturation is strong and the objectivity is high, that's going to be a quiz. If the emotional saturation is weak and the objectivity is large, it's going to be an actuality. If the emotional saturation is going to be small and objectivity is also small, that's going to be drama. And the objectivity is small and the emotional saturation is weak, that's going to be persuasion. Let me show it to you what it means. So the large objectivity and strong emotional saturation is going to be a quiz, because it's very much emotionally, we are like, oh, come on, I'm hoping you will win the 50 million euros or whatever in the end of this quiz. Quiz shows, sports competitions, these are all very typical. Large objectivity as well, because, you know, in the sports as well, it's like there is a rule that whoever is first is going to be the first one, or in the quiz show as well, if they know the answer, they will come first and it's okay. So there is like large objectivity, very strong emotions there, because we're rooting for it as well. If you think about the Olympic Games, which unfortunately was delayed this year, it's like it brings the whole nation together. We are all kind of rooting together. A lot of emotions are there. Large objectivity and weak emotions is going to be actuality. So it's like very objective and little emotions. They say it would be ideal if the news, the documentaries and factual programs could belong here. This is an idealistic kind of an approach. It's not actually this way, because the news is always going to be kind of appealing to emotions too. Small objectivity and strong emotional saturation, soap operas. So it's like Paula and Paulina from Brazil and stuff like that, theatre pieces, certain sitcoms, films, all that jazz. It's just going to be a lot of drama, like small objectivity and a lot of emotions, and it's just going to end up in the top juice soap operas. Small objectivity and weak emotional saturation is going to be like certain forms of advertising and propaganda, where it's like it's not very much holding you in their hands, so you don't feel for Dove or for this whatever product. It's just like they want you to be persuaded for a little while, and then they will want you to shop, and that's it, or to use their product, use their service as well. Okay, we don't need this one, sorry. Let's go on to, this is important. The main task of the recipient, like us, for this whole fact that the news is not going to be an objective kind of measure, is that it's not information gathering, but the dramatic involvement through which we can become an active participant of the events as well. So Carrie says this one, that the news is basically some sort of a drama, which should be objective. It should be high objectivity and very low emotional saturation, and it's not. It's rather, at the moment, because it's like entertaining news, it's rather low objectivity and a bunch of emotional kind of saturation, which is the characteristic of drama, soap operas, and that's what we are getting nowadays, 21st century, full of it. So Carrie said in 2009 that the news is basically drama that does not give a description of the world, but represents the arena of dramatic forces and actions, and they want you not to listen to the information, but to actually be an active participant of this, to have a dramatic involvement of this whole story in here, to share the content, to be second-guessing when the virus is coming back and what sort of impact it will have and stuff like that. They don't want you to be an outsider to be listening to information. No, they want you to be actively participating in this one. And for the fact that we like to listen to certain channels, and I'm very happy that you're not like that and you're actually kind of taking in consideration a lot of channels, because you said you didn't just focus on one bit, but a lot of them as well. They say, or Professor Atia says, that the fact that many people actually use or consume news on the same channel, they will kind of, it will prove that the news does not tell, but it actually interprets and identifies. It shapes the world, and it just verifies certain issues. And this binding to certain news channels certifies that the news manipulate, and most of all by implying that they do not manipulate. So when a news channel says that we are finally the objective news, or here you go, You're welcome. This is objectivity for you. Not at all. And that's why it's even more manipulative that they say, I'm the BBC News, I'm CNN, I'm the most objective news in the world. It doesn't exist. It's a social creation, humanly created kind of a stance. Doesn't exist. What are the main factors of newsworthiness, ladies and gents? Now, so why is it that certain pieces of news will get to the headlines and certain pieces of news will never reach it, even though for certain nations, cultures, it's going to be the most important happenings, and just because they're not prominent enough, they're in the eyes of the big fish, they're just never going to reach the eye of the public. Let's see. Familiarity. If you've got something that is familiar, so some case which is going to be that I have seen it somewhere and now it happens in another country, this is going to be very much useful, and it will reach the headlines. For example, in China, coronavirus started, and because we are familiar with that one, if it starts again in Europe as well, or if it started in Europe in March, then we will be kind of familiar with this story, and then it's going to be important to us too, because we know already that it's contagious, it takes lives as well, it's horrible. Surprise. Surprise is always going to be something that will hit the news. For example, I don't know any big celebrity. I'm so old, God. All I can think about is when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie got together and Jennifer Aniston got there left alone. That was like a surprise because nobody guessed that they were having an affair and stuff like that, and they would establish a family. And now they broke up again. Crazy. Predictability. That's also newsworthy, because if you're predicting something, then it's just going to be, and it's broken, the predictability is broken, then it's going to go on the news headlines as well. Quantities. Now, quantities are really, really good. If you say that the GDP rose by 8% in Norway, even though we don't know much about Norway, and even though we don't even know, majority of people don't know what a GDP is, people will still be like, look at the Norwegians, they are much better than us, and this and that and that. Like quantities, they're very, very good and manipulative stances in order to kind of drive the public and say that like this and that amount of money was spent, and we don't even understand billions. I'm not sure about you, but if people say that 135 billion forints was spent on this and that, I don't understand this number. It's just too much. I cannot imagine this. I can imagine to a certain million, but not above that. But still, it's just going to stick into the heads of the people. It will pin you down, because it's concrete information. Local relevance. If something happens here, for example, in Hungary, then we will be very, very, us Hungarians will be very excited about it. If something happens in Cambodia, for example, it's not very exciting. So local relevance is going to be needed. If there is, unfortunately, like some sort of an uprise or a war in your situation, your country, you will be extra involved. And if it's the other end of the world, we will be feeling sorry, but we will not have this relevance to us, to our nation, to our mom and dad, thinking about them, fearing for their lives. Eliteness and elite nations, elite people, elite nations. Certain nations are going to be elite. The United States, which is always worth mentioning. Russia as well, which is big and powerful. China, always on the news. Paris, that's not a country, how blonde am I? France, the Western countries as well, they're always on the news. And then certain countries are not super newsworthy sometimes, and they will not be hitting the headlines in certain situations, which is unfair, of course. Elite people, they can be celebrities, politicians, so whenever they are elite people, they will be hitting the headlines. And then last but not least, they can all kind of mix, because elite people can do surprising things, or elite nations can use quantities, of course, but the last one is going to be negativity, and that's going to be like one of the most important factors that will drive the headlines as well, that something negative has happened. When we switch on the news, we get disasters, riots, murders, demonstrations, terror, robbery, and other violations of the law. And then, of course, in the end, there is a newborn panda at the end of the news. Some sort of cute, uplifting ending to a news, but it's always full of negativity. what can be the cycle and what can be the reason why we tend to kind of watch negativity more and kind of use negativity more in the media. What is the driving force of negativity? Now, there are two main issues behind it. Number one is evolutionary psychology. The audience, whenever there is something negative happening to my neighbor or in the country or something, like if you are a zebra, let's say, I know it's really like a primitive example, but you're a zebra and you can see that a lion is eating another zebra, you are like, wow, I need to go now, I need to run because the other zebra is being eaten at the moment, right? So it's like you are mapping the potential threats, and that's why we're kind of super like interested in negativity going on in the world, thinking that like, do I need to run? Is it on? Do I have to fear for my life, and do I need to go? This is going to be that the viewer is going to be confronted with the news and feel anger or anxiety or something, and that's why negativity has got a very big driving force behind it. On top of that, negativity is going to have an asymmetry towards positivity as well, because negativity is always going to be easier, more sudden, unexpected than positive ones. Think about, for example, your telephone. You've got your mobile phone, for example, and then you suddenly, like, let's say that constructing something like this takes approximately, I'm not sure how much, let's say a month, to put it together, to get all the whole thing and all the little pieces in it. Yeah, a month. Now, how long does it take to drop it? It takes a second, and then the whole thing is shattered. Okay, so negative matters are always super sudden, surprising, easy, quick. Leading a healthy life and eating an avocado on toast every day and having a smoothie in the afternoon takes forever. But then suddenly having a heart attack and die. Oh, this is really, really, like very dramatic. But this was the example in the literature, that leading a healthy life and then suddenly passing away, very, very sudden, and it's unfortunately much easier to die than to lead a healthy lifestyle. We all know this because we all try, and it doesn't always work, and doesn't ever work, to be honest. So if it bleeds, it leads, they say. And Sontag says that the setup of the negative or catastrophe news are identical to the setup of catastrophe films. So Susan Sontag actually noticed it, that the whole negative news creation, this dramatic involvement, the news structure is the same, catastrophe news are the same structure as catastrophe films, which is crazy, right? So they say that like a catastrophe will always interrupt the normal course of daily life, and it will always be disturbing. What sort of catastrophes do we know? We know natural catastrophes, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, epidemics, all horrible, all are going to take a lot of toll on society. Man-caused or technical or industrial accidents, aviation disasters, for example, an aeroplane kind of goes down, or what else? Industrial accidents, Chernobyl, for example, that was like an industrial accident, it was of human man-made catastrophe. Political crises, terrorist actions, assassinations, and also from the 1960s, it's like assassinations committed against political persons. That was like a political crisis too. For example, John Paul II was attacked by a madman, something like I'm not sure if that was like a terrorist action or just like somebody lost their mind, but that was it. And then of course the Kennedy one, and we could say a lot which were going on. So these are the crises practically we cannot exercise now. And so let's see very quickly, and I'm going to kind of end it in here. Catastrophe films as catastrophe news, very typically they have got 5 typical kind of stages. In the first unit, something horrible, natural disaster, something happens, or a monster appears in the catastrophe films, and in the news as well. Something bad occurs, something of misfortune happens. And we always have some sort of a hero. It can be a politician who is fighting against it in real life, or it can be someone like heroic doing something. In the catastrophe films, we always have some sort of a hero. In the second stage, the hero learns about the state of emergency and tries to do something and the whole planet is threatened itself, and it's just, it's getting more and more severe. The third one is the phase of collective mobilization. We all need to do something. We all need to go. Nevertheless, we're kind of powerless, and we kind of feel a general despair and terror, and it's all kind of going down still. It's in the down phase as well in the catastrophe in the catastrophe movies as well. In the fourth stage, there are several attempts to eliminate the problem. Local forces continue to fail at it. There is always a sheriff in these films as well. If you think about what is a good catastrophe movie, there was the 2012 was one of them as well, and there is always like local forces. There's nobody there to do something. Or Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. Which one did I watch with the big dinosaurs and stuff like that? Of course, like there is always the sheriff. Oh, I'm not sure what to do, and then our local hero has to be solving the whole problem. And then in the concluding section, the hero of the story finds a kind of a solution that nobody has ever thought of course, and then stops the disaster. And depending on the origin of the film, it will be like a very dramatic and emotional reunion of the characters. Of course, unless they want to continue the film series, that's going to be the end, or they can just leave an open ending to it and just kind of, like share that, like, oh, it can still come back anytime, this monster or this terror or this whatever. And Susan Sontag actually noticed it, that she's a news researcher as well, that practically the whole news media is working on the same basis as this one. It's just that the hero is going to be someone of prominence, and the whole like catastrophe film structure is identical to the catastrophe news structure. I think I will stop rambling on it because it was a super long video. I'm sorry about it. Let's just stop it. Let's move into teams and talk about what we have heard, and I'm hoping you've enjoyed it, and see you in a bit. Thank you so much. Bye bye.